Delivery and nonverbal communication. The nonverbal component of the message clearly demonstrate how important delivery impacts the message you're delivering to your audience. The text of your speech is valuable. However, the nonverbal messages of how you deliver the content carries more weight with an audience. Unfortunately, many beginning public speakers wait until the last minute to prepare their outlines and usually head to the podium cold without rehearsing their speech, and that lack of preparation usually leaves the audience with a flat presentation. A well-prepared and practiced delivery communicates the speaker's ideas more clearly and interestingly than an unprepared delivered speech. When you head up to the podium and you know that you've not practiced your delivery as much as you believe you should have, that doubt is communicated non-verbally, and your audience will pick up on that lack of confidence. The lack of confidence is usually communicated by staring down at the podium instead of scanning the entire room, stuttering and stammering with lots of ums and ahs, staring in the sky for divine intervention, or delivering your speech with a monotone voice because you are reading your speech. Remember, this is public speaking and not public reading. The easiest way to ensure that most appropriate style of delivery is to focus on the message that you're trying to communicate to your audience. If your focal point is on delivering this message to this audience, your nonverbal messages will come naturally. Poise may be defined as the fluid demeanor of the speaker that gives the impression of being composed, prepared, confident, and dignified. Demonstrating poise is a critical mindset that should be adopted by public speakers. There are 4 methods of delivery: speaking from a manuscript, delivering your speech from memory, impromptu speaking, and extemporaneous speaking. Speeches that are of great importance are usually reserved for the manuscript delivery method. Manuscript speeches are delivered word for word and are written and rewritten numerous times for absolute accuracy in content and correct word choice. However, delivering a speech from a manuscript is challenging because it is so easy just to read to the audience as opposed to speaking to the audience. The audience needs to get a sense that you are talking to them and not a blank wall. Except for the shortest of speeches, it is not expected that you memorize your speech. When a speech is memorized, there is more effort on the speaker's behalf to remember the words as opposed to communicating with the audience. Impromptu speaking is a speech delivered with little or no advanced preparation. When faced with this situation, take a deep breath, compose yourself, and think of a few words to say them, and then sit down. Make sure your speech is relatively brief, because the longer you babble, the probability of saying something ridiculous gets higher, and your credibility in the eyes of the other people in the room will evaporate into thin air. Extemporaneous speeches are carefully prepared speeches that is practiced ahead of time. When using an extemporaneous delivery style, you'll be referring to a brief set of notes, which in our case would be our speaker's outline, as a memory aid while delivering your speech. Conversational quality means that no matter how many times you've practiced your speech, it still sounds natural to the audience. The extemporaneous speaking style is the one we'll be using in our class. We'll start to examine the speaker's voice. Things like volume, pitch, rate of speech, pauses, vocal variety, pronunciation, articulation, and dialect all make up the speaker's voice. If your audience cannot physically hear you, then even the most powerful messages will not be received by your audience. Volume is the loudness or quietness of the speaker's voice. On one end of the spectrum, if you speak too loudly, your audience will perceive you to be unrefined or rough around the edges. Conversely, if you speak so softly that no one can hear you, your audience may perceive you as not confident and not a credible person to speak on your topic. Your own voice will always sound louder to you than to your audience. The highness and lowness of a speaker's voice is also known as pitch of the speaker's voice. Now, changes in the speaker's pitch are referred to as inflections. So adjusting the pitch of your message allows you to match the mood of your speech with your voice. Monotone can be defined as a constant, unchanging pitch or tone of voice. Such a flatline range in your pitch is a sure way to disengage and tire the audience. Another pitch variation that will turn off an audience is a repetitious inflection pattern that does not change regardless of the content. It has been documented that speakers in the United States speak between 125 to 150 words a minute, but that rate allows for some flexibility based on the speaker's own communication style. The term rate of speech refers to how fast a person speaks. So when a speaker delivers a speech that is considerably slow, the audience will be left with a lot of spare time, and their minds will begin to wander as opposed to listening to your speech. On the other end of the spectrum, when a public speaker cannot wait to get away from the podium, they will often speak a million miles an hour. And at that point, no one can understand your message. Remember, public speaking is an audience-centered activity, and we need to be able to communicate to connect. So if your rate of speech resembles the Indianapolis 500, chances are your audience will not be picking up your message, nor see you as a public speaker in a favorable light. A pause may be defined as a momentary break in the vocal variety of a speech. A pause can close a thought while your audience reflects on what you just said, or it can let a dramatic statement just sit there while the audience ponders its significance. Vocalized pauses are pauses that occur when a speaker fills the silence between words with vocalizations such as Now these voice pauses are distracting and create a perception from the audience that the speaker is not confident or competent, and worse, not prepared. Vocal variety is the change in variety in the speaker's rate, volume, pitch, and how the speaker expresses his or her thoughts through the voice. Vocal variety enlivens a speech and makes it a more relatable experience for the audience. Pronunciation refers to the way a word or a language is usually spoken, or the manner in which someone utters a word. When in doubt about proper pronunciation of a word, just look it up in a reputable dictionary. Articulation is the physical production of particular speech sounds. So, poor articulation is the failure to form exact speech sounds crisply and clearly. A speech dialect is a variety of languages that is distinguished by variations of accent, grammar, or vocabulary. The United States contains 4 major regional dialects: Eastern, New England, Southern, and General American. So dialects are primarily based on regional or ethnic speech patterns. Kinesics is the study of body motions as systematic mode of communication. So how you use your body at the podium, such as the position of your head, eyes, and torso, impact the speaker's message. Your personal appearance should reflect the time and place of the situation and occasion. The clothing you wear should not detract from you, the public speaker. Regardless of the speaking situation, you should do your best to keep the best impression you can with your audience. A common distracting mannerism behind the podium is nervous movement. Some speakers sway from left to right like a clock. Other distracting movements that need to be avoided are playing with the change in your pocket, fidgeting with your outline, shifting your weight from one leg to another, and leaning on the podium. As you concentrate on delivering your message to your audience, a natural movement will evolve with practice and public speaking experience behind the podium. In your everyday conversation, you use your hands to reinforce particular points you're trying to make. When using your hands to gesture to the audience, the movements need to come across as genuine and sincere, not as forced and unnatural. One of the strongest ways to develop connection with your audience is through eye contact. On the flip side, the best way to lose your audience is not to look at them at all. This usually happens when you read your speech, stare at the ground, or stare at the ceiling. Facial expressions are a powerful way to communicate with your audience. Your facial expressions may reinforce an emotional tone of your message, as well as develop a connection with your audience. In addition, the speaker's facial expressions may convey a kinship towards the audience that can enhance the speaker-audience dynamic. When delivering a speech to an audience in a language that is their native language but not your native language, audience members may have difficulties understanding what you're trying to say due to an accent, misused grammar, mispronunciation of words, unusual word choice, or unfitting idioms. As a non-native speaker, it is understandable to be self-conscious about delivering a presentation. However, extra time and preparation before going to the podium can and will help your confidence. There's a variety of practicing delivery strategies that we can look at to help you become a much better public speaker. First, spend some time going over your speaker's outline. Do your main points lead you to a specific purpose? Do your introduction, body, and conclusion and transitions fit together like a puzzle? Are your main points supported well, and are they accurate? Spending time going over your speech aloud Does it sound right to the ear? Writing for the eye is different than writing for the ear. So does your speech sound as good as it looks? Next, take a look at your speaker's outline. Will the speaker's outline help you while you're at the podium? For example, is the font large enough for you to refer to while delivering your presentation? Should you incorporate different colored fonts to highlight your delivery cues? Again, the speaker's outline is there to help you while you're at the podium. While working through your material, grasping your main ideas while practicing your delivery is important. So practice your speech aloud. Don't worry about the first few times you practice that you will not sound like you are ready to deliver the State of the Union address. Just keep at it. You must focus on gaining command of the ideas of your presentation and not try to learn the speech word for word. If you try to memorize your speech, your message will come across as stiff and not engaging to the audience. After a few runs through your speech, you will capture the main ideas, examples, and statistics of your presentation. The best thing to do here is to record your speech, either on video or by audio, for you to capture how an audience will see and hear your message. You want to evaluate your eye contact, rate of speech, volume, articulation, pronunciation, vocal variety, and pauses. Next, ask a few of your friends, family, coworkers, or classmates to listen to your speech. Remember, public speaking is an audience-focused activity, so it's best to practice in front of people.